Hello, phenomenal story lovers. Get ready for a tale that intertwines fate, hidden truths, and a love that blooms in the most unexpected places. This narrative will make you believe that kindness is a currency more valuable than gold. Before we embark on this incredible journey, tell us in the comments what city you're watching from. And if you believe that genuine connection can bridge any gap, hit that like button and subscribe for more powerful, heartfelt stories. Your support means the world to us. Alexander, what are you doing here? Eleanor froze, seeing him standing on the corner, shopping bags dangling from her trembling hands. Alexander Hayes felt like a child caught stealing sweets. Words caught in his throat as he looked at his housekeeper, who watched him with a mix of surprise and alarm. I saw you walking by and you followed me? Eleanor's voice rose, but she maintained the composure that always characterized her, even now, standing under the dim streetlight. Mr. Hayes, this isn't right. You are my employer. I am your employee. That's all. My life after work is none of your business. But Alexander had seen too much. He had watched her enter the building opposite with medicines, how she hugged that young man, clearly her brother, how she carried bags of food for someone else. Everything he had witnessed in the last 20 minutes had turned his world upside down. You're right, he murmured, running a hand through his hair. I shouldn't have followed you. But Eleanor, what I saw. What did you see? Her eyes gleamed with a mix of defiance and fear. I saw an extraordinary woman caring for others when she should be resting. 3 weeks earlier, Alexander Hayes had been sitting in his London penthouse, looking out the window at the empty street on a Tuesday night. His divorce from Victoria had been finalized barely 2 months prior, and the betrayal of his former business partner still ached like a fresh wound. At 42, he felt more alone than ever, surrounded by luxuries that no longer gave him any satisfaction. His house was a museum of soulless, expensive objects, designer furniture no one touched, artworks no one admired, a gourmet kitchen where he barely knew how to make coffee. The silence was so dense that sometimes he would turn on the television just to hear human voices. Eleanor arrived on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays at 8 sharp. Never a minute late, never a minute early. She was 28, her blonde hair always tied in a practical braid, and she moved through his house with a silent grace. She cleaned, tidied, and left at 4 in the afternoon without a sound. At first, Alexander barely noticed her. She was efficient, discreet, and maintained that professional distance he respected. But something had begun to change in recent weeks. Perhaps it was the way she organized his books by author, instead of by color, as the previous housekeeper did. Or how she always left a clean cup next to the coffee maker, as if she knew he would need coffee when he arrived from the office. The first time he saw her walk down his street after working hours, he thought it was a coincidence. The second time, he felt curious. The third time, he decided to find out what was going on. That Tuesday night, as Eleanor passed his building with hurried steps, Alexander grabbed his jacket and followed her at a discreet distance. He saw her enter a pharmacy, buy medicines, and then head to the apartment building across the street. Through a first-floor window, he could see her helping an elderly woman take her pills and serving her dinner. An hour later, a young man arrived with medical books under his arm. When Eleanor hugged him, Alexander could immediately see the family resemblance. Siblings, no doubt. The young man looked tired but determined, and Eleanor served him food while he studied. It can't be, Alexander murmured, hidden in the shadows. But it was true. His housekeeper, the woman who cleaned his house 3 times a week, had a completely different life from what he had imagined. A life full of responsibilities, sacrifices, and genuine love. When he finally confronted her in the street, Eleanor looked at him with those eyes he now recognized as belonging to someone who had known true struggle. "Why didn't you tell me anything?" he asked softly. "Tell you what? That I look after my elderly neighbor because she has no family? That I work other jobs to pay for my brother's medical studies?" Eleanor shook her head. "You pay me to clean your house, Mr. Hayes. My personal life is not part of the contract." "Eleanor, I have to go." She turned away. "David is waiting for me to take him to his night shift at the hospital, where he's doing his residency." "Wait." Alexander extended his hand, but didn't dare to touch her. "Are you coming to work tomorrow as usual?" Eleanor looked at him for a long moment, as if she was evaluating something he couldn't understand. "Yes, Mr. Hayes. I'll be there tomorrow at 8, as always." As he watched her walk away with her bags and her dignity intact, Alexander realized that something fundamental had changed in him that night. For the first time in months, perhaps years, he had seen something real, something authentic in a world full of superficiality. And for the first time since his divorce, he didn't feel completely alone. The following Thursday, Alexander managed to be home when Eleanor arrived. He had canceled an important meeting and told his secretary that he would be working from home. He felt ridiculous, like a teenager waiting for his crush to arrive, but he couldn't help it. Eleanor arrived punctually. As always, in her immaculate uniform and perfect braid. She wished him good morning with the same professional courtesy as always, but Alexander noticed something different in her eyes, a warmth he hadn't seen before, mixed with caution. "Good morning, Eleanor," he replied, closing his laptop. "How is Mrs. Davies?" Eleanor paused mid-stride towards the cleaning cupboard. "The elderly lady you care for. Her name is Mrs. Davies, right?" A blush crept up Eleanor's cheeks, but she held her chin high. "She's better, thank you. Her medication is working." Over the next 2 hours, Alexander found excuses to be near as Eleanor worked. He offered her coffee, commented on the weather, and finally, when he saw her organizing his library, he mustered the courage. "Have you read 100 Years of Solitude?" he asked, pointing to the book in her hands. Eleanor's eyes lit up immediately, and, for a moment, she forgot to maintain her professional distance. "It's a masterpiece," she replied without thinking. "Gabriel Garcia Marquez manages to make the magical and the real coexist in such a natural way that the reader accepts that yellow petals fall like rain, as if it were the most normal thing in the world." Alexander smiled, genuinely surprised by the depth of her answer. "Exactly. My favorite part is when Jose Arcadio Buendia is tied to the chestnut tree, remembering the day his father took him to discover ice." Eleanor finished the sentence, and for the first time since working for him, smiled genuinely. "That image is incredible. The contrast between a child's wonder and the melancholy of the old man remembering." They fell silent for a moment, looking at each other as if seeing each other for the first time. "Did you study literature?" Alexander asked softly. Eleanor's smile faded, and she returned to her professional expression. "A long time ago," she murmured, rearranging the books. "Excuse me, I have to finish with the library." But something had changed between them. Over the next few weeks, their conversations grew longer and deeper. Alexander began leaving poetry books on the dining room table, and Eleanor couldn't resist commenting on them. He discovered that she had been a literature professor at the University of Cambridge until budget cuts eliminated her position. "Is that why you work as a housekeeper?" he asked one day as they shared coffee in the kitchen. "I work as a housekeeper, in a bakery in the mornings, and in a call center at night," Eleanor corrected him. "David is in his final year of medical school. I can't let him down now." Alexander felt a pang in his chest. This woman worked 18 hours a day to keep her brother's dreams afloat, and cared for an elderly woman who wasn't even family. "And your dreams?" he asked, What about going back to teaching? Eleanor shrugged, but he could see the sadness in her eyes. Dreams are luxuries I can't afford right now. That night, Alexander couldn't sleep. He thought about Eleanor getting up at 5 in the morning to work at the bakery, coming home, and then going to care for Mrs. Davies, and then working until midnight at the call center. He thought about his own complaints about loneliness and his business problems, and he felt ashamed. The next day, he began to make small gestures. He accidentally left good quality coffee in the kitchen. He bought a book of Pablo Neruda's poetry and left it on the table with a note that said, "Thought you might like this." When winter arrived and Eleanor came in shivering after waiting for the bus in the rain, he gave her a cashmere scarf. "I can't accept this," Eleanor protested. "It's too expensive." "It's just a scarf," Alexander lied. "I don't want you to get sick. Who would take care of Mrs. Davies and David?" Eleanor looked at him with an expression he couldn't decipher, but she kept the scarf. Their conversations became more intimate. Eleanor told him about her childhood, about how her parents died in an accident when David was only 15, and how she had abandoned her doctoral studies to raise him. Alexander told her about his failed marriage, how he had realized that Victoria only wanted his money, and how empty his life felt. "You know what's the saddest thing?" he told her one day. "I have everything that's supposed to make a person happy, but I feel like I'm living someone else's life." "At least you have options," Eleanor replied softly. "You can change your life whenever you want. I can't." "Are you sure about that?" Alexander looked at her intensely. "Sometimes I think you have more freedom than I do. You live according to your values. You help the people you love. You do the right thing, no matter the cost. I just exist." One rainy May afternoon, Eleanor arrived soaked and shivering. She had missed the bus and walked 6 blocks in the storm. Alexander insisted that she dry off and have hot tea before working. "I can't sit on your furniture wet," Eleanor protested. "To hell with the furniture," he retorted, and the way he said it made Eleanor look at him in surprise. "Go dry off. I'll make you tea." When Eleanor returned in dry clothes he had lent her, one of his shirts and some exercise pants, Alexander felt his heart race. She looked small and vulnerable in his clothes, but also beautiful in a way he had never noticed before. As they drank tea together, Eleanor looking out the window at the rain, Alexander realized something that both terrified and thrilled him. He was falling in love with her. That night, after Eleanor left, Alexander anonymously called the hospital where Mrs. Davies was being treated and paid all her outstanding medical bills. He also arranged for groceries to be delivered weekly. He didn't know how, but he was going to find a way to make Eleanor's life a little easier, even if she never knew it was him. "Eleanor, we need to talk." David closed the door to the small apartment they shared and crossed his arms. "Where did all this expensive food come from? And the new coat?" Eleanor looked up from the table where she was studying weekend job offers. "I told you Mr. Hayes has been generous lately," she replied, trying to sound casual. "He gave me the coat because I arrived soaked the other day." "Generous?" David sat opposite her. "Eleanor, rich men don't give brand-name coats to their employees out of kindness. What's really going on?" "Nothing is going on." Eleanor felt the heat rise up her neck. "He's a good employer. That's all." "A good employer who pays Mrs. Davies' medical bills?" Eleanor froze. "How do you know that?" "Mrs. Davies told me yesterday. Someone paid for everything anonymously, and she's sure it was you. But I know you don't have that kind of money, Eleanor." "So who was it?" Eleanor closed her eyes. She had suspected Alexander was behind the mysterious gestures, but hearing it confirmed filled her with a mix of gratitude and panic. "David, please, tell me you're not getting involved with him." Her brother's voice softened. "I know you've been working too hard. I know you sacrificed your career for me. But Eleanor, men like him don't have good intentions with women like us." David's words echoed in her head for days. He was right, wasn't he? What could a millionaire want from her, beyond the obvious? The difference between their worlds was abysmal. Her doubts intensified when, the following Tuesday, an elegant and sophisticated woman appeared in the penthouse while Eleanor was cleaning. "Who are you?" the woman asked, looking Eleanor up and down with disdain. "I'm Eleanor, Mr. Hayes' housekeeper," Eleanor replied, immediately feeling her uniform look cheaper under that scornful gaze. "Ah, of course," the woman smiled coldly. "I'm Victoria, Alexander's ex-wife. I came to pick up some things I forgot." Eleanor nodded and continued with her work, but she could feel Victoria's eyes analyzing her. "How long have you been working here?" Victoria asked suddenly. 3 months, madam." You're very young and pretty to be a housekeeper." Victoria moved closer. "Let me give you some advice, dear. My ex-husband can be very generous when something catches his eye, but don't be mistaken. Men like Alexander never take women like you seriously. You have some fun with them, and then they discard you like a broken toy." Eleanor felt as if she had been slapped. "I don't know what you're talking about," she managed to say. "Don't you?" Victoria laughed. "The gifts, the special attention, the long conversations. Please, you're not the first employee who thinks she can climb socially through her bed." "I don't." "We don't. Of course not." Victoria took her purse. "Because you're smarter than that, aren't you? You know this can only end badly for you. He'll get bored, and you'll lose your job and your reputation." When Alexander arrived that night, Eleanor had already made a decision. "Mr. Hayes, I need to speak with you," she told him, keeping her hands firmly clasped behind her back so they wouldn't tremble. "Of course. Do you want a coffee? I was thinking of preparing some dinner. And, I resign," she interrupted him. Alexander froze halfway to the kitchen. "What?" "I resign from my job. I'm finishing on Friday." "Eleanor, what happened?" He approached, but she backed away. "Is it because of the money? I can pay you more." "It's not about money." Eleanor took a deep breath. "It's because this is becoming complicated." "Are you referring to us?" The way he said us made Eleanor's heart race and break at the same time. "There is no us, Mr. Hayes. You are my employer. I am your employee. That's all there can be between us." "Eleanor, please, let's talk about this. It's already decided." She took her bag. "I'll finish the week to give you time to find someone else." Alexander followed her to the door. "At least you can tell me what changed. This morning we were fine, and now..." Eleanor turned around, and he could see tears in her eyes. "Your ex-wife came today. She reminded me of my place in the world." "Victoria was here?" Fury crossed Alexander's face. "What did she say to you?" "The truth." Eleanor opened the door. "That men like you don't take women like me seriously." "That's not true, Eleanor. What I feel for you..." "Please, no." She raised her hand. "Don't make this more difficult than it already is." For the rest of the week, they worked in tense silence. Alexander made several attempts to converse, but Eleanor maintained a strict professional distance. On Friday, her last day, he was not home when she arrived. Eleanor finished her tasks as always, leaving the house immaculate. Before leaving, she went to the library where they had shared so many conversations about books and literature. She picked up the Neruda book he had given her and returned it to its place on the shelf. She was about to leave when she saw something that made her stop dead in her tracks. A framed photograph she hadn't seen before, probably because Alexander had only recently put it there. In the image, a much younger Alexander embraced a woman who looked extraordinarily like Eleanor. With trembling hands, Eleanor picked up the photograph. The woman had the same blonde hair, the same eyes, even the same smile. On the back, someone had written, "Alexander and Isabella, University of Cambridge, 1998. Isabella. Alexander's voice startled her. He stood in the library entrance, looking at her with an expression that mixed pain and resignation. I can explain. Explain what? Eleanor held the photograph with trembling hands. That you knew my mother? That you hired me because I look like her? It's not what you think. What is it then? Tears streamed down Eleanor's cheeks. I'm just a replacement for her. A way to relive your lost youth? Isabella was my first love. Alexander approached slowly. We were together for 2 years at university, but she left me to marry your father. I never fully got over her. Eleanor felt as if the ground were moving beneath her feet. And when you saw me, at first, yes, I hired you because you looked like her. But Eleanor, what I feel for you has nothing to do with Isabella. I love you, not her memory. How can I believe that? Eleanor dropped the photograph. How can I know if what you feel is real, or if I'm just a ghost from the past? Because I know you. Alexander extended his hands towards her. I know your laughter when you talk about books. I know your strength when you carry the world on your shoulders. I know your kindness when you care for Mrs. Davies without expecting anything in return. I love you for who you are, Eleanor Green, not for who your mother was. Eleanor shook her head, backing towards the door. I can't do this. I can't live always wondering if it's me or if it's her. Eleanor, please. Goodbye, Alexander. And for the first time, she had used his first name, but to say goodbye. The next 2 months were the most difficult of Eleanor's life. Without the job with Alexander, her income drastically reduced. She desperately looked for jobs, but most paid less than she needed, and the hours clashed with her other jobs. Eleanor, you're exhausted, David told her one night, finding her asleep on the kitchen table with unclassified newspapers scattered around her. This can't go on. I'm fine, she murmured, rubbing her eyes. I got an interview to clean offices at night. If they hire me, I can keep the bakery job. And when are you going to sleep? When are you going to rest? Eleanor didn't reply because she had no answer, and she had left the job with Alexander. Her life had become a constant race against time and lack of money. The worst part wasn't the physical exhaustion. It was the emotional emptiness she felt every time she passed Alexander's building, every time she saw a Garcia Marquez book in a bookstore, every time she remembered their conversations and the way he had made her feel special. I was wrong about you, David told her one afternoon after returning from his hospital residency. Mr. Hayes, I think he really cared about you. What makes you think that? He's still paying Mrs. Davies' medical bills. And not only that, he's sending her groceries every week. Mrs. Davies asked me about you. She says he's visited her twice to ask how you are. Eleanor felt a pang in her chest. That doesn't change anything. Really? David sat opposite her. Eleanor, I've seen how you were with him. You smiled more, you had more energy, and the way you talked about your conversations, I'd never seen you like that with anyone. David, maybe you made a mistake. Maybe you should talk to him. Eleanor shook her head, but her brother's words kept swirling in her mind. Meanwhile, Alexander was living his own hell. His work had become mechanical, without passion. He arrived late for meetings, canceled important appointments, and his assistant had started asking him if he was feeling well. The truth was, he wasn't feeling well. He felt empty, lost, as if he had lost something essential of himself when Eleanor left. To make matters worse, Victoria and his former business partner had started spreading rumors in his social circle about his inappropriate relationship with a housekeeper. The gossip didn't bother him, but it hurt him that it could damage Eleanor's reputation. One Friday night, after another miserable week, Alexander decided to visit Mrs. Davies. He needed some connection with Eleanor, however minimal. Mr. Hayes, Mrs. Davies greeted him with a warm smile. What a pleasant surprise. Come in, come in. How are you feeling, Mrs. Davies? Much better, thanks to you. Although I still don't know why you do this for an old woman you barely know. Alexander sat on the worn armchair, looking at the family photographs on the table. I do it because Eleanor cares about you, and I care about Eleanor. Mrs. Davies studied him with wise eyes. And does she know? She knew. But things got complicated. Does it have to do with you looking alike? Alexander looked at her, surprised. You knew? I have eyes, young man. And Eleanor told me about her mother. Isabella was a beautiful woman, but also very unhappy. She married out of obligation, not love. I didn't know that. Isabella used to tell me about a young man she met at university. She said he had been the love of her life, but that her family pressured her to marry Eleanor's father because he had a better financial position. Alexander's heart raced. Does Eleanor know this? I don't think so. Isabella died when Eleanor was very young, and her father never spoke of the past. That night, Alexander couldn't sleep. If what Mrs. Davies said was true, perhaps his connection with Eleanor wasn't just a coincidence. Perhaps Isabella had seen something in him that was worth remembering. But his thoughts were interrupted by a phone call at 3 a.m. Alexander? It's David. Eleanor's in the hospital. The world stopped. What happened? She fainted at work. Exhaustion and malnutrition, the doctor says. Can you come? Alexander dressed in record time and rushed to the hospital. He found David in the waiting room, with deep, dark circles under his eyes and trembling hands. How is she? Stable, but... David rubbed his face. The doctor says she's been running on pure adrenaline for weeks. Her body just gave up. Can I see her? David looked at him for a long moment. Room 314. But Alexander, she's very fragile now. Please, don't hurt her anymore. Alexander found Eleanor asleep, connected to an IV. She looked small and pale in the hospital bed, so different from the strong, determined woman he knew. He sat beside her bed and gently took her hand. I'm sorry, he whispered. I'm sorry I complicated your life. I'm sorry you had to work so hard because of me. Eleanor slowly opened her eyes. Alexander? I'm here. What are you doing here? David called me. Eleanor, when do we have to talk? There's nothing to talk about. Her voice was weak, but determined. Yes, there is. About your mother, about us, about the future. Eleanor closed her eyes. I'm tired, Alexander. Tired of fighting. Tired of working so hard. Tired of missing you. Alexander's heart swelled with hope. Then stop fighting alone. Let me help you. How did you help my mother? Your mother left me, Eleanor. She chose security over love. I don't blame her, but I won't allow you to make the same mistake. Eleanor looked at him with eyes bright with tears. How can I be sure that you love me and not her? Because you would never have left me, he replied simply. You fight for the people you love, no matter the cost. That's something your mother couldn't do, and it's one of 1,000 reasons why I love you. At that moment, Mrs. Davies entered the room, leaning on her cane and panting slightly. Mrs. Davies, what are you doing here? Eleanor tried to sit up. I came to take care of you, just as you've taken care of me. Mrs. Davies approached the bed. And I also came to bring you something. From her purse, she took out a yellowish envelope. What's that? Letters your mother asked me to keep before she died. She told me to give them to you when you found true love. I think that moment has arrived. Eleanor took the envelope with trembling hands. Inside, there was a letter written in her mother's delicate handwriting. As Eleanor read, her eyes filled with tears. When she finished, she looked at Alexander with a completely different expression. What does it say? He asked softly. That she used to dream about you, that she regretted leaving you her whole life, and that she hoped someday I would have the courage to choose love over fear. Alexander felt tears stream down his cheeks. Eleanor. It also says that if we ever met, she would know that destiny had given us a second chance, that she didn't have the courage to take. Eleanor extended her hand to him, and this time she didn't withdraw it when he took it. "I want to try," she whispered. "But this time, as equals." "What do you mean?" "I want to go back to teaching. I want to find a way to be independent and be with you at the same time." Alexander smiled through his tears. "I have an idea for that." 6 months after Eleanor's collapse in the hospital, the University of Cambridge announced the launch of the Second Chance for Displaced Educators Scholarship Program. Eleanor was in her new office, reviewing applications for the third call, when the phone rang. "Eleanor Green, Program Director," she answered, still feeling strange with her new title. "Miss Green, this is Dr. Charles Miller from the Times. We want to do a report on the success of the scholarship program. Could we do an interview?" "Of course." Eleanor looked at the photo on her desk, where she appeared with the first 15 beneficiaries of the program. "It would be a pleasure." After hanging up, Eleanor leaned back in her chair. The past few months had been a whirlwind of change. When Alexander proposed the scholarship program, she had been skeptical at first. "I can't accept your charity," she had told him from her hospital bed. "It's not charity," he had replied. "It's justice, and besides, I need someone to run the program. Someone who understands what it means to lose a career due to circumstances beyond their control." Eleanor had finally accepted, but with strict conditions. Her salary would be competitive, but not excessive, and she would maintain total independence in program decisions. Alexander had accepted without question. The first week had been strange. Seeing Alexander in work meetings, maintaining a professional relationship after everything that had happened between them required a delicate balance. But gradually, they began to build something new. Their weekly meetings about the program naturally extended into conversations about literature and life. Alexander consulted her on decisions that went beyond the scholarship program, genuinely valuing her opinion. Eleanor began to see a different side of him, not the lonely millionaire, but the man who truly wanted to make a difference. "How's everything going?" David poked his head through the office door. He had finished his medical residency and now worked in a community clinic that, coincidentally, also received anonymous donations. "Good. We just approved 15 more scholarships." Eleanor smiled. "And you? How are things with Sarah?" David blushed. He had met Sarah, a psychologist, at the clinic, and Eleanor enjoyed teasing him about his obvious infatuation. "It's going well. In fact, I wanted to ask you for some advice about something." David sat down in front of the desk. "I want to ask her out to dinner, but I don't know if it's appropriate. We work together and—" "David," Eleanor interrupted him with a smile. "If you've learned anything from my experience, it should be that love doesn't understand professional protocols. Speaking of that, how are things going with Alexander?" Eleanor sighed. That was the question that tormented her daily. "I don't know. We work well together. We respect each other, but we keep our distance." "Why?" "Because I'm scared," Eleanor admitted. "Scared that if things go wrong, I'll lose not only him, but also this job that I love." "Eleanor, the man is obviously in love with you. I see it every time he looks at you in meetings." "How can you be so sure?" "Because I know that look. It's the same one you have when you talk about him." That afternoon, Eleanor stayed late at work, preparing the presentation for the University Council. She was so focused that she didn't realize someone had entered until a familiar voice startled her. "Working late again?" Eleanor looked up and found Alexander standing in the doorway, holding 2 cups of coffee. "Alexander, what are you doing here? I saw the light on from the street. I thought you might need coffee." He approached and placed a cup on her desk. "How's the presentation going?" "Good, I think. The numbers are impressive. 45 educators have returned to classrooms, and the student retention rate in their classes is 15% higher than average." "That's extraordinary, Eleanor. You should be proud." "I am." She took a sip of coffee. But I'm also nervous about the presentation. Why? The results speak for themselves. Because some council members are still wondering if the program is a legitimate academic initiative, or just... Eleanor stopped. Or just what? Or just the expensive whim of a rich man to impress a woman? Alexander was silent for a moment. Is that what you think? No. Eleanor looked him in the eyes. But I'm worried others think that. Eleanor, may I ask you something? She nodded. Do you miss what we had before? I mean, our conversations, the connection we felt. Eleanor felt her heart race. Every day. Me too. Alexander moved closer. And I know we said we were going to keep things professional, but it's impossible. Eleanor finished the sentence. At least for me. For me too. He extended his hand and gently caressed her cheek. Eleanor, I've tried to give you space, to respect your boundaries. But I love you, and I believe you love me too. Yes, she whispered. I love you. Then why do we keep pretending we're just colleagues? Because I'm afraid of ruining this. Eleanor gestured around the office. This job, this program, is the most important thing I've done in my life. And you're not going to ruin it. Eleanor, you are brilliant, dedicated, and you change lives every day. That has nothing to do with me. Are you sure? Completely sure. And to prove it, Alexander took an envelope from his jacket. What's this? The legal control of the program. I'm transferring it completely to the university. It will no longer be my program. It will be theirs. You will report directly to the dean, not to me. Eleanor opened the envelope with trembling hands. Alexander, this must be worth millions. It's worth less than your peace of mind, and it's worth much less than the possibility of being with you without you having to worry about conflicts of interest. Eleanor stood up and approached him. Are you sure about this? I've never been more sure of something in my life. He took her in his arms. Eleanor Green, would you do me the honor of dating me? This time as the man who loves you, not as your boss. Eleanor smiled, feeling as if a huge weight had been lifted from her shoulders. Yes, Alexander Hayes, I'd love to date you. When he kissed her, softly and tenderly, Eleanor knew that they had finally found the way forward. Together, as equals, building something beautiful on the solid foundation of mutual respect and true love. Outside, London shimmered with the night lights. But inside that university office, two hearts that had fought against circumstances and their own fears had finally found each other in the right place. 3 weeks after Eleanor and Alexander made their relationship official, the University of Cambridge organized a gala to celebrate the first anniversary of the Second Chance program. Eleanor was in her apartment, nervous as she got ready for the event. You look beautiful, David told her, poking his head into her room. Though I don't understand why you're so nervous. It's your program, your achievements, because tonight Alexander is going to give a speech, and the entire university community will be there. Eleanor smoothed the navy blue dress she had bought for the occasion. It will be the first time we appear publicly as a couple, and that worries you. A little, she admitted. There are still people who believe I got this job because of my relationship with him, not because of my merits. David took her by the shoulders. Eleanor, in 1 year, you have changed the lives of 60 educators. Your results speak for themselves. Let them think what they want. The gala was held in the university's main hall. Eleanor arrived early to check the final details, but stopped dead in her tracks when she saw a familiar figure waiting for her at the entrance. Hello, Eleanor. It was an older woman with gray hair and kind eyes who seemed strangely familiar. Do we know each other? Eleanor asked. I'm Isabella Davies, your father's sister. Your aunt, Isabella. Eleanor felt her legs tremble. She hadn't seen her father's family since the funeral, years ago. Aunt Isabella, what are you doing here? David invited me. He told me about your work, about... About Alexander. The woman smiled. I wanted to see you, and I also wanted to give you something I've kept for a long time. Isabella took a small wooden box from her purse. What's this? Letters your mother asked me to keep before she died. She told me to give them to you when you found true love. I think that moment has arrived. Eleanor opened the box with trembling hands. Inside were several yellowed letters, all addressed to Alexander Hayes. I don't understand. Your mother wrote these letters for years after marrying your father, but she never sent them. In them, she confessed that she never stopped loving him, that she regretted her decision, and that she hoped that one day destiny would give them a second chance. Eleanor took one of the letters and read in a trembling voice. My dearest Alexander, today Eleanor turned 5, and every day she looks more like me. Sometimes I look at her and think that perhaps destiny has plans that we cannot see. I hope that one day, if we meet again, I will not make the same mistake of choosing security over love. Tears streamed down Eleanor's cheeks. There's more, Isabella said softly. In the last letter, written shortly before she died, your mother wrote something very specific about you and Alexander. Eleanor took the last letter with trembling hands. If someday Eleanor meets Alexander, I will know that the universe is giving us the opportunity that I did not have the courage to take. I pray that she will be braver than me, that she will choose true love without fear. Because if I have learned anything in these years of loveless marriage, it is that happiness is not found in security, but in being with the person who makes your soul feel complete. Eleanor wiped away her tears, feeling a strange sense of peace and purpose. Why did you wait so long to give me this? Because I had to be sure that what you felt for him was real, not just a rebellion or a fantasy, Isabella said. But when David told me how you fought against your feelings, how you tried to maintain your independence, I knew you had found what your mother always sought. At that moment, Alexander appeared in the hall, elegant in his black suit. Seeing Eleanor with tears in her eyes, he approached immediately. Is everything all right? Alexander, I want to introduce you to my Aunt Isabella. Eleanor took his hand, and I have something to show you. When Alexander read the letters, his eyes also filled with tears. Eleanor, this means this is no coincidence. Eleanor smiled through her tears. It means the love we feel is blessed by the love my mother never fully lived. The gala began an hour later. The hall was filled with educators, students, university authorities, and donors. Eleanor presented the program's results with confidence and passion, receiving a prolonged ovation. When it was Alexander's turn, he walked to the podium with a solemn expression. A year ago, I decided to create this program for reasons I then believed were philanthropic, he began. But tonight, I want to be completely honest with you about the true reasons. Eleanor felt her heart race. What was he doing? I created this program because I fell in love with an extraordinary woman who had lost her career as an educator due to unfair circumstances. I thought that if I could help her return to teaching, perhaps I could win her over. A murmur ran through the audience. But what I didn't expect was that she would teach me so much about integrity, hard work, and true dedication. Eleanor Green transformed my selfish initiative into something genuinely meaningful. She is the one who deserves all the credit for this program's success. Alexander paused and looked directly at Eleanor. Eleanor, when we met, I was an empty man who had everything except what truly mattered. You taught me that true wealth lies in the impact we have on the lives of others. You taught me that real love is not based on convenience or similarity, but on mutual admiration and shared growth. Eleanor realized she was holding her breath, as was everyone in the hall. That's why tonight, in front of this entire community that I respect so much, I want to ask you something." Alexander walked down from the podium and approached Eleanor. "Eleanor Green, my love, my equal, my inspiration. Will you do me the honor of marrying me?" The hall fell silent as Alexander knelt and took out a simple but elegant ring. Eleanor looked around the room, seeing the expectant faces of her colleagues, David smiling from the back, Isabella nodding in approval, and finally Alexander, the man who had changed her life in ways she never imagined possible. "Yes," she said softly, and then louder. "Yes." The hall erupted in applause as Alexander placed the ring on her finger and kissed her tenderly. When they finally separated, Eleanor took the microphone. "I want everyone to know something," she said, her voice clear and strong. "True love knows no social classes, no economic differences, or what others think is appropriate. True love is based on mutual respect, on shared growth, and on the daily decision to choose that person above everything else." She looked at Alexander with sparkling eyes. "Alexander, you helped me find my way back to what I love doing. But more importantly, you helped me find the courage to love without fear. Yes, I want to marry you, but not only for romantic love. I want to marry you because you are my best friend, my intellectual partner, and the person who makes me want to be the best version of myself." The applause was deafening. As Eleanor and Alexander embraced, surrounded by the love and approval of their community, both knew they had achieved something extraordinary. They had found true love without compromising their integrity, their values, or their independence. That night, as they celebrated with David, Isabella, and the program beneficiaries, Eleanor felt she had finally fulfilled her mother's last wish. She had chosen courageous love over fear, and had found in Alexander not only a partner, but an equal who inspired her to be better every day. Eleanor woke up to the sound of rain gently tapping against the windows of the apartment she now shared with Alexander. It was Saturday morning, and for the first time in months, she had no meetings scheduled. No presentations to prepare, no crises to resolve. She stretched lazily and found the bed empty beside her. The aroma of coffee and something sweet baking wafted from the kitchen, making her smile. After a year of marriage, Alexander continued to surprise her with small gestures of everyday love. She put on a robe and walked to the kitchen, where she found him concentrating in front of the oven, his hair disheveled and wearing an old t-shirt. "Good morning, my husband," she said, hugging him from behind. "Good morning, Dr. Green," he replied, turning to kiss her. "How does it feel to be officially a woman with a doctorate?" Eleanor smiled. She had defended her doctoral thesis the previous week. Pedagogy of the second chance, an analysis of the social impact of educational reintegration programs. The program that had started as a small initiative had now expanded to 5 universities across the UK. "It feels surreal," she admitted. "Sometimes I still can't believe all this is real." "What are you baking?" she asked curiously. "Blueberry scones, for breakfast with Isabella and David." Eleanor raised an eyebrow. "David and Isabella? Together? Your brother called early. He wanted to talk to you about something important, and Isabella said she wanted to come too. Sounds mysterious." Eleanor poured herself coffee. "Lately, David has been very mysterious." An hour later, David arrived with Isabella, but it wasn't the Mrs. Davies Eleanor used to care for, but her Aunt Isabella. The 3 of them looked nervous and excited. "What's going on here?" Eleanor asked, looking between the 3 of them. David cleared his throat. "Eleanor, I have something to tell you. Sarah and I are getting married." Eleanor screamed with joy and ran to hug her brother. "David, that's wonderful! When? Where? I have to get to know Sarah better. Have you given her the ring yet? Calm down, David laughed. The answer is in 2 months, at the neighborhood church where we grew up. You'll get to know her better at dinner next week. And yes, I gave it to her last night. But there's more, Aunt Isabella said with a smile. David asked me to give you this. She handed Eleanor an elegant envelope. What is it? Open it, David told her. Eleanor opened the envelope and found a formal invitation. But it wasn't just for the wedding. It was an invitation to be the maid of honor, but also something more. An invitation to give a talk at the International Congress of Education to be held in Brazil next month. David, how did you get this? It wasn't me. Her brother smiled. Your husband sent your thesis to several international academics. They officially invited you to present your research. Eleanor looked at Alexander in astonishment. You sent my thesis? Without telling me? Only to 3 people, he said, raising his hands defensively. I wanted to surprise you. Your work deserves to be known worldwide. At that moment, Eleanor's phone rang. It was an international number. Eleanor Hayes? This is Dr. Patricia Silva from the University of Sao Paulo. We received your thesis and would love to invite you to develop a pilot program here in Brazil. Eleanor replied professionally, but her eyes sparkled with emotion. When she hung up, she turned to the others with an incredulous expression. They offered me to direct the international expansion of the program. 6 months in Brazil, then Colombia, then the UK. And, Alexander asked, what did you tell them? That I needed to consult my husband. Eleanor looked at him. Because it would mean a lot of travel, being separated? Eleanor, Alexander took her hands. Do you remember what you told me the day we got engaged? That true love means supporting each other's dreams. This is your dream come true. But what about us? We'll be fine. Besides, Alexander smiled. Who says I can't work from Brazil for a few months? My company has been pressing me to expand into Latin America. David and Isabella exchanged amused glances. You know what's the most beautiful thing about all this? Isabella said. Seeing how you support each other. Your mother would be so proud. That afternoon. After David and Isabella left, Eleanor and Alexander walked through the neighborhood where Eleanor had grown up. They visited the bakery where she had worked, greeted Mrs. Davies, who now ran a small community center funded anonymously. And finally, they stopped at the small park where Eleanor used to read as a child. Do you remember the first time we talked about Gabriel Garcia Marquez? Alexander asked, sitting on a bench under a tree. Of course, she said. You quoted José Arcadio Buendia, remembering the day he discovered ice. Now I understand that image differently, he said, taking her hand. It's not just about nostalgia for lost innocence. It's about the moments that change your life forever, so clear and perfect that you remember them until the last day. Like what? Like the day you walked into my house for the first time. Like the first time you smiled talking about literature. Like the moment you realized you loved me as much as I loved you. Eleanor rested her head on his shoulder. My moment was when you offered me the scarf, not because it was expensive, but because it was the first time in years that someone cared about my well-being without expecting anything in return. They fell silent for a moment, watching the children play in the park. Alexander, do you ever regret it? Eleanor asked suddenly. All that changed in your life, your social circle, your family's criticism, the way some people see you now. Alexander turned to look at her fully. Eleanor, before I met you, I had a life that seemed perfect from the outside, but it was empty inside. Now I have a life that has real meaning. I have a wife whom I deeply admire, work that truly matters, and the certainty that every day I wake up next to you is a gift, even when we argue about the household budget. Especially then, she laughed, because you remind me that money is just a tool, not an end in itself. That night, as they had dinner at home, Eleanor received a call from a television producer who wanted to make a documentary about the Second Chance program and its social impact. "I think this year is going to be even crazier than the last," she told Alexander after hanging up. "Are you ready for that?" "With you, I'm ready for anything." Eleanor raised her wine glass. "A toast." "To what?" "To second chances, to love that overcomes differences, and to your mother and mine, who taught us that true love is worth any risk." As their glasses clinked, Eleanor thought about the entire journey they had taken. From that first morning, when she nervously entered a millionaire's house to clean, to this moment, sitting at her own table, married to her best friend, and about to take her work to the international stage. It hadn't been an easy road. They had had to overcome social prejudices, personal fears, and the complexities of building a relationship between two people from such different worlds. But they had shown that when two people genuinely love and respect each other, they can create something beautiful and lasting. "I love you, Eleanor Hayes," Alexander said softly. "And I love you, Alexander Hayes, forever." Outside, London continued its nightly rhythm, with its millions of stories of love, loss, hope, and dreams. But inside that modest apartment, full of books, family photographs, and plants Eleanor had insisted on having, two people who had found love beyond social expectations lived proof that happy endings exist, especially for those who have the courage to fight for them.